Hey folks, welcome to Shaky Hands Workshop. My name is Brian. Today I'm going to be making a new set of dungeon tiles. I've made some in the past that were not bad, but um, I'm I'm getting to the point now where I prefer more more detail in what I'm looking at when I'm running a game. I've been wanting to introduce more 3D elements into my game for several years. I have in the past, thrown some scatter terrain out on top of a battle mat, and that's worked out pretty well, all things being equal. It's worked out pretty well and kind of gave my players a oh shit moment where they're like looking at a barn and fences and all that, and those considerations outside of theater of the mind don't really come into play. Yes, it goes into a more tactical mindset, but your enemies should be attacking you in a tactical mindset. My opinion. It is not shared, but it is what it is. This is the way I prefer to run my games, which tend to be a little more grounded in the now than into the far off the super high fantasy. Let's just put it that way. The super high fantasy, my games tend to drift high fantasy in some respects, but then again, if when it comes down to fighting monsters and that type of thing, I try to make it so that they don't forget the encounter. I try to play the monsters the way they're supposed to be played, in my opinion. Uh, and we'll just leave it at that. All right. Well, let's go over to my table and we'll see what I'll show you what I've made before and what I'm working on now, and just a basic process of how I'm going through, how we go through and make these dungeon tiles. Now, next week, my plan is to go ahead and move on to go ahead and expand on what I'm showing you today, and I've got a couple adventures coming up, hopefully one of these days, where they will be encountering a Cthulhu-y type of influence, and so I want to make some wall murals and that type of thing to go with that type of encounter. So, all right, well, enough rattling around for me. Let's go over my table and take a look. All right, so the past while I've made this a couple years ago. This is not bad. I mean, it's decent for what it is. The only downside for me on something like this is I'm worried about the miniatures falling off the sides, and that in itself, I mean, I could make some side walls and come up and what have you, but I worry about the visibility of the players and such. So this is what I've got a pretty decent amount of this stuff. I may just go in and just refurbish what I've got, but I don't know. So this is a set I just made. This hallway. This is done in a 2.5 inch wide. These are 1/4 inch walls, and they're a 1/2 inch tall. And my initial run through with this is that's pretty good. I mean, I can get 2 miniatures down here. Oops, excuse my big hands while they hook into everything. And I can get a 20 millimeter base, a 20 millimeter base, and a 25 millimeter base, or I can get 2 of the bad guys in here, just like that. So it'll fit a 40 by 40 base in there as well. It's just for a standard hallway. And so then I went on, I was like, well, at the end of the hallway, we need a door. So matching the similar profile, I went ahead and went with that. And yeah, they do open. it's my first attempt ever at doing doors. I use a toothpick in here, and it'll swing open and closed. Because I was just going to have just the end of the hallway, but I was like, well, I need to do something to block line of sight and what have you. So that in itself is not bad. I'm actually fairly happy with that. And I believe that may stay the 1/4 inch, I think so. But that may have gone, yes it did. So that stayed about the 1/4 inch as well. And then I was playing around with this last night. So this is similar, except it's only got a centimeter. Yes, I'm flipping measurements on you. I do find that working in metrics for some things is better. One is just easier for me to read on a ruler than it is for the standard imperial system. I'm playing around with this right now, where I've got a strip of magnetic tape down, and I was playing around with a scrap piece of foam that's got some flexible steel underneath of it, and it holds. I flip it upside down, and it'll go back and forth and stuff, or it won't come off. It'll just stay there. And I'm even making a doorway that'll fit one of the 1-inch squares, excuse me, here, and it will go like that, but it extends out a little bit. This is where getting into how much detail do I really need to do. This is that question I've been kind of kicking around the last few days, ever since I decided I was going to do a video on this dungeon tiles. Turns out that there's, everybody as well has got an opinion on it, and I'm no different. I have an opinion on it. I enjoy 3D elements in my game. I'm not going to lie. I've used battle mats for decades, and they're fine, perfectly fine. I can continue to run on battle mats forever. But I've been wanting to add more 3D elements into my game for the immersion factor more than anything else. And that's really one of the big things with that, is that the more immersive I can make the encounters or the environment that my players are in, the more they're able to react as their character would in that environment. And that's, I think, lost on a lot of folks, is that you need to react as your character, not necessarily just a stat block. Every time I hear that term, it makes my stomach curdle. But I'm old, and anyway. So this is a kind of in progress piece that I'm working on now. I'll probably go to the centimeter wide borders, truth be told, because I like the little extra meat here. Centimeter comes up to just under 1/2 inch. So if you're looking for correlation, that's a 1/4 inch. So it's just a little bit more. It's got a little more beef to it. And my doorways like this won't be as beefy, I guess. And I'm going to make some that go to where I'll have what will be like this, and I'll have a doorway here and a doorway here. So if they're walking down that hallway, they can, they'll have that option to them. Okay. And that's kind of the mindset for that. I still hand draw all of my maps. Yes, there's programs that I could do map drawings with. I just prefer this way. I've been doing it for over 40 years, and it's just what I'm used to, I guess. So let me show you the basics on really how to go about doing this. So I've got a piece of XPS foam that I've cut to 1 centimeter thick. Again, so it's just under 1/2 inch, but it's thicker than a 1/4. It's like that mid-range between the two. I've got 1 centimeter borders on the side. That'll be for my walls. I went ahead and cut out some, I'm going to mess with you now. They're 1 centimeter wide to fit the here, but they're 1/2 inch tall because a 1/2 inch on the character is about waist level. And that was my cutoff, is I wanted something that was going to be about waist level, something for the players to see. It'd be just enough to still go with the illusion of the walls going up, but provide you with enough clarity to see down on the table. The only way it would be a little bit better is if my table had a drop of probably about 4 inches, 5 inches, something like that. If the play area was actually down a few inches, that might work. But knowing how things tend to work, somebody spills a can of soda and then they flood the whole area. So I think I'll just leave things as they are and we'll just adjust from there. If nothing else, I could take this down to 1/4 inch thick, and that little bit of a reduction may, if someone has an issue, may actually give them that little bit of extra clarity they need. So what I've done is I've got 1 inch spacings from the edges to in here. I'm going to go ahead and mark out the rest of my 1 inch spacing and get this thing drawn up. And I found that, honestly, one of the best carving tools I got, just a bog standard Bic ballpoint pen. Black works better for being covered with some of the thinner pigments, paints and stuff, but use what you got. So let's go through and just mark it off at the 1 inch increments, and that runs out at 5 inches. All right, cool. Yeah, if you can find these are little, just a clear little T-square, big help. Honestly, I forget where I got this at. I think it was at an art store. And just give this thing a couple runs through, just like that. You see I've already got a deep crevice in there already. Now I've got this gridded out. I'm going to add a little cracks to it. Probably one every row or so. More if you want, yeah. And to be fair, this is all generic. So if I'm going to be doing a very specific type of environment, then I'll make a set just for that environment. Like say an old dwarven hole or something like that. It'll be a lot more geometric shapes. It's probably the best way I can put it. Yeah, it's just a lot more dwarvy, I guess. Just a lot more geometric shapes and such on any type of ornamentation that I might put in. All right, yeah, that looks pretty good. So we're going to take a ball of texture here, or this aluminum foil. Just roll this sucker around. Now, if you remember, I was talking about the medium weight chipboard as, not good for over basing material, for an overall basing material, but if you got some of this stuff that's got a little bit of bow to it, you put a layer of that on the back with a couple runs of glue on there and weight it down. Bob's your uncle, man. That thing will stay put. So it does have uses, like I mentioned. It's just as a for me as a basing material, I would never, I wouldn't use it again for a true basing material, unless it's something really light. All right, now we've got that all in there. We'll get an X-Acto knife and score this a little bit. So yeah, just go through here and score this really good. I'm not gonna score the edge, this border right here. Well, actually, I take that back. I am gonna score that. My OCD won't let me do it otherwise. All right, so that's all set. I'm going to come through here and texture my sidewalls. I like to do all my texturing and stonework before I actually put them on here. It just makes things a lot easier. Yeah, okay. They should be the same length. I cut them from the same piece. To save myself some headache, I went ahead and when I initially was cutting this out, I scored out, or I marked out all this first, and this was about a 4-inch piece, and then I gave myself the 1 centimeter buffer, and then went ahead and cut in an extra 1/2 inch for each one. There was enough material left over, so I had to use this one piece. It was about 4 or 5 inches, and that way I'm assured that the same depth here, the 1 centimeter here, is the same width as here. So I don't have to worry about remeasuring and all that type of all that type of stuff. I've tried not texturing the ends, but my OCD won't have it, so. And now we're just gonna eyeball the center of this thing and just start doing the staggered brick type of look. Oh, there we go. Alright, so I got both walls done right here. Not too bad for an old guy. So we're just going to hot glue these things down and then cover this whole thing in Mod Podge, which has been colored with some gray paint. If I'm honest, hot glue is actually something I'm just now getting around to using. I have been using regular PVA forever, and never occurred to me to use hot glue before until I've seen some of these other online crafters and such. And it's got a lot of good for speed building and stuff. It's got a lot of good applications for that. Yeah, it's been a really neat tool. Gauging how much to use, that's been a little bit tricky sometimes. And there's also some other applications you can do with it, like making mushrooms or spider webbing and that type of thing. All right, let's turn that off. Try and keep everything lined up. All right, there we go. That's a nice 15-foot by, 25-foot hallway. A lot of room to fight and errantly cast spells and the like. So let me grab my Mod Podge and we'll get this thing covered. And when you're in here doing this, kind of take your time. You want to try and get as much of the like a lot of those carved areas and stuff, these recesses, because going back later and trying to fill those in can be kind of a tedious chore. Try and spend a little extra time just getting those things covered. Even after all the years doing this type of stuff, I've still not as neat as I should be. And of course, Mod Podge gives a little extra adhesion for the two joins, like around this area and such. So it's a nice added benefit. So I've got this thing all dried up. It's good to go. I'll tell you, never even thought about using a hairdryer for miniatures until I saw Miniac use that. And it's kind of like huh. Speeds things along instead of having to wait. So my palette for this is going to be very simple. My primary colors are going to be basically brown. This is a suede. It's kind of like a light beige color. And then a tan, which of course is like a darker, well, it's tan. And then my base color overall is going to be pewter gray. For the paving stones, these larger stones here, these are I'm gonna start with a touch of black in the base color, and then I'll highlight up with that. The sidewalls, I don't go back and worry about highlighting as much because they're not going to be the primary focus. My floors are. So with that in mind, this will get basically 3 layers of highlighting, and then the whole thing will get covered in a black wash, and then a final highlight will cover everything. You'll see that in a little bit, but for right now I'm just going to go through and cover everything with the base color. And went in the house and got myself a nice ceramic plate that my wife was okay with making sure it doesn't come back in the house. All right. And it's going through and picking up. I see some exposed foam down there. Try and get that covered as best I can. All right. Now I hit my base color all on the wall. All right, got the base colors down. Now I'm just gonna Gonna hit this thing with a hair dryer again, get it dry, and we'll come back and start laying in the other colors. All right, so I got this thing through the hair dryer. Hit this thing with the hair dryer again. Got it all nice and dry. It's got that grungy, dark in the dungeon type of look, if that's the way. So I like to go over it one more time with a white, just to kind of bring things back up just a little bit. And see if I can find a proper brush to do this with. Let's do this. You know, I've seen these things for years and trying to figure out what the heck to use these things for. They're really good for dry brushing on like a large flat surface, something like that. But I think they make, I saw Bob Ross do trees with these at one point. So, sounds good. Or let's go ahead and go with that anyway. So I'm going to go with a white. And, of course, my bowl's all get ones. I'll go with this parchment color. I did play with one of these earlier, and I was like, all right, so just get towards the very front of this thing, the very ends of it. And we'll just kind of lay this down like this and just bring it straight back like that. That way it catches just enough of the texture that I put in there. Go along the top of the walls as well. Remember, if it looks really bright right now, it will fade, it will darken as it dries. Not to mention the tones that are under here as well. So, there we go. That's a final little dry brush on there for me. One of the things I probably should have done is gone back on these cracks that I put in. Is gone back with some black paint maybe, or some black ink, and pick those up. Alright, so now I'm going to make up my moss. So the moss is going to be a little bit of just regular old, it's going to be a little bit of this green blend flocking. Just a little bit of that. We're going to add in some PVA. Throw some of that in there, and then I throw just a little bit of water in there to help kind of thin it down a little bit. This particular water has got some flow weight in it, so it should help with all that. And then I'm just going to use the back end of my brush and stir this in. And I'm flipping stuff all over a little bit more. All right, now just come in and just kind of dab it along the sides. Try and stay out of the main path as much as possible. Just give it some little bit of extra creepiness, if you will. A couple splotches out here in the middle. Nothing too big. Don't want to interfere with the model and stuff. So just some splotches, just kind of break things. And so that was the very basics on how to do dungeon tiles. Yeah, that's it. So that was how we do how I do dungeon tiles. It's not as ornate as some folks, but it's not very simplistic either. Once the process is down, it's just a matter of putting in the time, and pre-cutting some material ahead of time to speed things along. Just as an added note, I do custom make my own like for different room shapes and stuff. Then I'll go in and custom make that. But a lot of this stuff, doesn't, you don't need like hundreds and hundreds of these things. You got a set core of say a dozen or 20 or whatever it is that you commonly use, then that's perfect. I think I mentioned earlier that if it's a very specific type of thing, say you're doing drow, okay, they're obviously, I would think that their stonework and stuff would have different hues and tones and all that, so you would want to make a set specifically for that, and because it just lends to the believability of the environment that the characters are in. All right, enough prattling from this old guy. Hope you all enjoyed that. If you did, please do the like, share, subscribe. You all have a great day. Take care, and I will see you in the next video. All right, y'all take it easy. Bye.